Good morning and welcome to Storytime. Thank you so much for joining me today on this lovely, lovely Wednesday morning. Good morning to you and welcome. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime as always. Much appreciated. Yes, indeed, love being with this community, and I am glad that you're here for this amazing book today, A Place to Stay, a shelter story. And this one is written by Erin, Gunti and illustrated by Esteli, Meza. And of course, we're reading this one with permission of Barefoot Books. Yes, indeed. If you do not know about them, please read a little bit more about them and find out the amazing work that they're doing and the contributions that they make for each book that you purchase. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime today and welcome. Thank you for joining us. As always, please let us know who is joining in with you and where you are joining us from. Good morning to you. How are you doing today? Thank you. Happy Wednesday. And yes, indeed, thankful to be here with this group, to be here with this community, and I wish you the very best this week and many, many more weeks to come. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you've enjoyed the lineup that we have for you so far. And yes, indeed, we have a great story lined up for you today, and of course, there's many more stories to come, including the two that we have this week. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. Thank you, and yes, indeed, let us know where you are joining us from, and here it is. Marlon, good morning to you out in LA, and of course Ethan and Ian, good morning to you. There's no way I was going to forget today. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. How are you doing today? Marlon, Ethan and Ian, and of course Tendai Chineva, how are you doing? Thank you so much for joining in today. Molly and Birdie, how are you doing out in Alameda right next door? You say good Wednesday to you, of course to you as well. Thank you so much for joining in. And Jonathan, good morning to you as well. Thank you so much for joining in. Marley and Birdie, I hope you are ready for this beautiful story. Thank you so much for joining in. Amanda West, good morning to you out in Illinois, and you're saying it's rainy Illinois today, wet and rainy. Good morning to you. Well, please do stay cozy and enjoy your day. Thank you so much. And of course, starting it off with story time together. Thank you for joining in. Sarah and Nathan, good morning to you. How are you doing? I hope you have your hot chocolate ready and enjoying story time. Thank you so much for joining in. Good morning to you. Harry, good morning to you. How are you doing, buddy? Good to see you here. Thank you for joining in story time. Future Rider in the house, good morning to you. And of course, good morning to you, Kat Saxton, as well. Thank you so much, Kat, for joining in with Harry. And of course, good morning to you, Chris Wheeler, as well. Thank you so much. And of course, Kat Saxton, thank you for all the messages on how we can stay safe during this time. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Good morning to you. Tendai Chineva, one more time. Marlon, Ethan, and Ian, good morning to you. Natasha, how are you doing? And you're saying you're joining us from New Hampshire. How are you doing? Good morning to you. And please let us know if anybody is joining in with you. Good morning to you, Natasha Allen. Thank you so much for joining us all the way out on the East Coast. Good morning to you. Soraya, good morning to you. Mikio, Isayo, and Masi, how are you today? Good to see you here. I hope I got those names correctly. Thank you so much for joining in. Good to see you back. Thank you so much for joining in. Ellen Edwards in Chicago. Yes, indeed. Good morning to you. And you say happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving break to everybody that is joining in story time today. A Place to Stay, a shelter story. And this one is by Erin Gunti and illustrations by Esteli, Meza. Yes, indeed. Good morning to you and welcome to story time. Thank you. Good morning to you, Molly and Birdie and Jonathan out in Alameda. Thank you so much. Did I say Oakland before? Alameda. Yes, right next door in Alameda. Thank you so much for joining in. Good morning to you. How are you doing one more time? Oh, and Soraya, you're saying you're joining in from the Central Valley in California. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining in. How are you doing today? I am glad you are here. Soraya, you're joining in with Mikio, Isayo, and Masi. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for letting us know where you're joining us from. Abby and Olive Oil, good morning to you. All back in the house in Oakland. Good morning to you, sweetheart. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining in. Or should it be Abby and Abby joining in? Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you're having yourself a beautiful break from school. Jennifer Vera, good morning to you. How are you doing today? Good to see you as always. And yes, I will be in touch and better so we can work on that list together. Thank you so much for joining in. Good morning to you, Kakom Pelimata, all the way out in Lusaka, Zambia. How are you doing, my brother? Good evening to you out there. Thank you so much for joining in. Desmond in Gilroy, good morning to you. Joining in with Jessica Fortino. How are you doing today? Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining in. And yes, indeed, Natasha, absolutely appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And you say happy Thanksgiving to everybody that is joining in out there. Thank you so much for joining in today. How are you doing? We're going to get started with our story. Thank you to everybody that is here to enjoy this great story with us. All right, let us get started. Of course, this one is called A Place to Stay. And A Place to Stay, a Shelter Story. And this one is written by Erin, Gunti and illustrations by Esteli, Meza. And we're reading this one with permission of Barefoot Books. Yes, good morning to you. Here we go. I slammed the car door and tacked Bunny Beth under my arm. I don't want to stay here, I told Mama, looking up at the tall building. I know, Mama said softly, but we are very lucky to have a place to stay. I squeezed Bunny Beth to my chest. I didn't feel lucky. This isn't a house, I whispered. You know what, Mama said? I think you're right. Looks more like a palace to me. A palace? I asked. Mama grinned. Let's go inside and see if the queen is here. Inside, we met a woman with short hair sitting in a tall swivel chair. Her name was Kelly. Mama filled out some paperwork. Then Kelly said she would show us to our room on the 3rd floor. We passed an area with some sofas and a television on one side. Next, we walked past a room full of toys and books. Oh, wow, Mama exclaimed. I believe we found the treasure cave. Is all this for me? I asked. You and all the other kids. Maybe you will make some new friends, said Kelly. Mama said we would visit later. Kelly took us to the room where she said we would sleep. It was very small. Dinner is on the 1st floor, she said before leaving us to unpack. We put our bags on one of the beds. Then Mama pressed on the mattress. A little squeaky, but it feels pretty soft. I frowned. That's not my bed. My bed had a fluffy pink blanket and 3 pillows just for me. This bed had a boring gray blanket and only 1 pillow. Mama replied. You're right. That's not your bed. In fact, that's not a bed at all. She kicked off her shoes and climbed on the mattress. What are you doing? I asked. Mama took a big bounce. She took another bounce, then another. Her fingertips touched the ceiling. This isn't a bed. This is a rocket ship sending me straight to the stars. Do you want to touch them too? Bouncing looked like fun. It took me a few tries, but I finally touched the ceiling. Mama looked at the clock. Oh, I think it's time to go downstairs for dinner. My tummy rumbled. Yum! I smell spaghetti, Mama said. The dining room was large and full of people talking loudly. Some people stood behind the counter serving food. Others sat at tables. I covered my ears. This isn't a kitchen. You're right, Mama said. This isn't a kitchen. It's a banquet hall. A banquet hall, I asked. Yes, and look at how many people have come from near and far to dine with us. Let's get our food and say hello, shall we? Okay, I sighed. We sat next to a woman named Alice and her 2 children, Grace and Andrew. Alice let me feed Andrew a bottle. Grace and I talked about school and found out we were reading the same book. How exciting is that? After dinner, Mama gathered my PJs, soap and a towel so I could have a shower. I turned the water on, then ran my hand under the spray. Brrr, I said. You will just have to wait for the water to warm up before you get in, Mama replied. Wait? Oh, that will never work, I said. And why is that, Mama asked. Because we won't find water here, I smiled. Really? How will we find it? Mama asked. Deep sea diving, I said. Put your diving mask on. We swam to the right. Glug. We swam to the left. Glug, glug. Over here, I shouted. The water was just right. After my shower, I climbed my rocket ship and snuggled with Bunny Beth. Mama, this is the most comfortable rocket ship I have ever slept in, I yawned. I think so too, Mama whispered, kissing me on the cheek. Good night, sweetheart. Good night, Mama, I whispered back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we were off to sleep. The end. Thank you so much for joining in. But before we end, let's just look at some of the reasons that people may be homeless. And this is what the story was covering today. And it says shelters and homelessness. Why do people stay in shelters? The characters in this book are spending the night at the homeless shelter, a building that provides a place to stay for people who need it. People might be having trouble finding a place to sleep at night for many different reasons. This could happen if a natural disaster like a hurricane or a flood destroys someone's home. It could also happen if someone can't pay for a place to live. Maybe they lost their job or a big, expensive, unexpected bill came up. Sometimes living at home is not safe, so people have to find a new place. And that's just some of the reasons that people may need to find shelter. But as we are enjoying this family time, this time around Thanksgiving, when everybody is spending time with family, of course this year is very different. Most people will not be doing that because we're staying safe and making sure that we can have more time to spend together. And yes, indeed, waiting on the health personnel as they do the amazing work that they do to get us the vaccine ready and also to get us ready to go out in the world safely. But do spare a thought for those people that do not have homes and have to be in shelters and have to move around. And please, if you can, do donate. Find organizations that you can donate to and help out in your community. But yes, indeed, let us be thankful that we have a place to stay. And indeed, we have our loved ones that love us even from a distance. Thank you so much for joining in Story Time today. I hope you enjoyed that heartwarming story, the powerful woman in this story, and yes, indeed, the resilience that the young girl shows as well. Thank you so much for joining in, and I hope you enjoyed that one. Great lessons for all of us and reminders to be thankful of what we have, even the little things. Thank you so much for joining in. And tomorrow we continue celebrating family and togetherness. And tomorrow we'll be reading Luca's Special Blanket, a gift of love from Grandma. Do join in for that one. Harry, I expect to see you here for that one. Yes, indeed, Harry and Ruth, this one's for you. Luca's Special Blanket, a gift of love from Grandma. And of course, Chrissy as well. Join in for this one. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining in Storytime. I hope you enjoyed that story. Thank you for this beautiful community that we have together and for sharing in that amazing book with me. Thank you. Good morning to you, Olive Oil. one more time right here in Auckland. And of course, Abby right here in Auckland. Thank you so much for joining us. Jennifer Veda, good morning to you. Thank you for joining in Story Time. Appreciate you massively. And of course, Kakompe, good morning to you, little brother. How are you doing today? Good to see you. Good to see you here on Story Time. Thank you so much. Desmond in Gilroy and Jessica Fortino, how are you doing today? Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining in. Natasha, thank you for joining us today. Absolutely love it. Natasha Allen, good morning to you. Thank you. Oscar Mwanakulanga, all the way out in Katete, Zambia. Thank you so much for joining in. All the way out in the land of Katesia. Good morning to you. Jody Michael, good morning to you. How are you doing? Judah, DJ, and Blaze. Love those names. Great to see you back. Thank you so much for joining in. I am glad we have this break together that we can read and see people that have not been able to join in since school started back. I am so glad you're here. Thank you for joining in. DJ, Judah, and Blaze, good morning to you. And Jody Michael as well. Thank you so much. Yes, indeed, Jennifer Veda, you say thank you and great reminders. Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. I am so glad to see so many faces back that I've not seen in a while. Grateful that you're here, and thank you that we're able to spend time together. Ellen Edwards in Chicago, thank you so much. I will see you again tomorrow when we are back with an amazing story. Molly and Birdie, and of course Jonathan in Alameda, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining in. Mikio, Isayo, and Massey, good morning to you. And Saraya, thank you so much for joining us, and good morning to you. Thank you so much. And you said you're joining in from the Central Valley. Good morning to you. Marlon, Ian, and Ethan, good morning to you. And Tendai Chineva as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in Story Time today. I hope you enjoyed that beautiful story from Barefoot Books. And this one was called A Place to Stay, a Shelter Story. Yes, indeed. Do join me tomorrow for Luca's Special Blanket. Thank you so much for joining in. Much love as always. And I will be back right here, same time, 10:30 Pacific time. And if you miss a story, please do catch us on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, as well as recordings on our Facebook for all the books that we have permission to record. But thank you so much for joining in. Much love as always. I will see you in the morning. Bye-bye.